Good evening, everybody. We hope that this is working and that we are currently live on your phones, on your smart TVs, and on your laptops or desktops. We are in Vicus's house here in George at the moment, and we are going to try and bring you the live trans talk tonight. So we are a bit new at this, and we hope that everything's working and that you guys can hear us and that you can see everything. So the trans talk is we've discussed this a few times amongst ourselves and realized that it could be a week long or 2 hour long trans talk tonight if we had to go through all the information about the event, and that it would take way too long for us to go through it. So we decided to break it up into a series, and tonight is our first introduction series, and we're going to cover a few basic points on it, and then we will host more regular series of episodes as we go with more relevant info at that point in time, and hopefully bring you something to look forward to on the Transbavierns front every week, and hopefully we'll be able to keep going with it. So I'm gonna give over to Vicus now. Vicus is the race founder and also the man that started this event. What's it now, Vicus? 16 years ago. So this year, 17 years ago. A true pioneer in the sport of mountain biking, started Hell and Back 25 years ago, and he's the founder of the Transbavierns. And the idea for Vicus is to chat a bit more about with you about the history of the event, how it came about, how it started, and yeah, Vicus, up to you.
Thank you. Dankie, Zane. Goeienaand almal. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all keeping well under these lockdown conditions. We're suffering a bit on this side, but all's well. Yeah, something about Bobbejanskloof, just to introduce the area to you guys. Bobbejanskloof, of course, is South Africa's tallest or largest wilderness area. It comprises an area of approximately 500,000 hectares. That includes the surrounding conservancies adjacent to it. And the reason why the Bobbejanskloof is such a unique area is because of the diverse vegetation. Now, South Africa has got 8 different biomes throughout the whole country, and 7 of those biomes you find in the Bobbejanskloof. That's what makes it such a unique area. I know most of you, when you do the event, you won't see a lot of it because a large portion of that area you will travel at night. So it's just a reason to, at some point, come back and visit the area. Now, of course, the wildlife in that area also diverse as the vegetation. There's some species that occur only in that area, like some of the redfin minnows that you will find in the rivers. And of course, due to this uniqueness of the Bobbejanskloof wilderness area, it was proclaimed a World Heritage Site in 2004. And coincidentally, that's the year that we started the Transbavierns as well. So, and that brings us to a bit more about the event. We've planned this event, I would say, about 7 years before we did the first one. We couldn't figure out how to do it, because those of you that do know the Bobbejanskloof, there's only one road going through it, and it's a remote area. You're far off from any civilization when you're in there. So in those years, a distance further than 60 kilometers or 80 kilometers on a mountain bike was just unknown. So in 2003, a friend and myself decided we're going to take our bikes from Willamore and start riding and see how far we get. So about 16 hours later, we ended up in Cape St. Francis, and we realized that, okay, this is something to do, it's achievable, and that's where the whole idea of the 24-hour concept and not marking the route, etc., got hold. And yeah, so that's where it started, and I think we've maintained the format of the event through these 17 years, and we'll continue so in future.
Vickers, well, the next topic for us on this forum is this evening to talk about is the situation that we are in, and the COVID-19 issue, the lockdown issue that we're in. And we've had requests, and people want to know what we are going to do as the event organizers for Transpavillons. We did send out a newsletter to you guys this morning with a bit of our plan. Do you want to elaborate on that a bit, Vickers?
Yes, of course. We're sitting in a difficult situation, everybody in South Africa. I think it's uncharted waters for many. So it's a difficult call to make. We've had a lot of time to think about it, to discuss it, and we sort of came up with a plan, and the plan is short and simple. For now, we plan to stick to our dates in August, see how this release of the lockdown pans out. Hopefully it will come to a point before that date, and we can carry on with our event as planned. If it does not happen, or if we see that the rollout of the ease of the lockdown takes too long, we decided that we will make a definite call by 1st of June. We are working on a plan B. The plan B is basically to postpone the event, but of course a lot of the events that would have taken place now has also postponed. So the second half of this year is extremely congested with other events now. So we have decided that in the event that we can't do the event in August, we'll postpone to January 2021. We're looking at the second half of January. Which means that for the first time in the history of the event, we'll have a summer Transpavillons, which I think will be something different. But we'll still have our 2021 Transpavillons in August next year. So it means that we'll have two events.
Yeah, like we said today earlier as well, that would be a momentous occasion for us to have a summer Transpavillons and a winter Transpavillons in the same year. As Vickers said, we don't really know what's going to happen, and we're in the same boat as everyone else in the country, but we will try and keep you updated and keep you informed well in advance as far as possible going forward. So then that brings me to our next guest that we've got here tonight, is Harold from Polar, South Africa, and he's going to run through some of the critical things about training and getting you motivated for this event, whether it's going to take place in August or take place in 2021. But for now, we are hoping and aiming that it will take place in August this year in our plans, and we're going forward with all of that. And Harold's going to share some motivational sections of training and why you want to train for this event and how to train for this event. I'm not going to give all his tips away already, so he's going to go over, but also be aware of the fact that we are going to go into training a lot more over this series. We're going to be talking about more training things going forward. We're going to look at the Polar training planners in depth and all of those things as we go forward. Without further ado, let's just switch Harold's sound on. Harold, welcome to the Trans Talk. I hope you are ready for us.
Hi Zane, I hope you can hear me. Greetings from Johannesburg, and greetings to everyone out there that has taken the time to come and watch us and see what we have to share. So the whole idea about tonight, it's obviously we're going to run the whole information evening in a couple of episodes, and tonight we're really going to start with something that most of you have already seen and are quite familiar with, especially those of you that have done the race before, is the route profile. And the whole idea really tonight is to scare you a little bit, possibly, and hopefully scare you into in a good way, because as Vickers has described, you're about to embark on a journey that is probably one of the best days and nights that you'll spend on a mountain bike. So let's move on to probably a picture that looks a little bit better than the route profile. We'll come back to that route profile just now. And the route you're going to follow all the way from Willowmore down to Jeffreys Bay. It doesn't look that scenic from this map's perspective, but please believe me, the countryside and the area you're going to travel through is spectacular. Hopefully you can see a lot of it in daylight. So what I want to share with you guys tonight, and what we want to look at in more detail, is obviously the route profile that we had up before. And you'll see it predominantly looks like a fairly straightforward route. One of the things obviously is that it's pretty much like a restaurant menu that you look at, but once you order the food and it actually arrives in front of you, it's a very different story. And people that haven't done this race before will notice that from the start, it's not a downhill race as you may think from possibly kilometer 30 onwards. So you'll be leaving Willowmore and you'll see right at the start, we actually have this steady climb all the way to the highest point in the race, and that has been named the Roof. The altitude there, I think, is close to 1,200 meters, probably just a little bit lower than that. But there's a steady pull all the way from Willowmore up to the Roof. And one of the things about that is that you will be climbing, and that last little section up to the Roof, if you can see my mouse moving up there, is actually an average gradient of about 4%, not too long, 3 kilometers, but you'll climb just over 100 meters, 115 meters in that first climb. So don't be fooled. It's not a downhill race from the gun. You do climb a little bit first, and a lot of times this is where the leaders get sorted out from the rest of us. Once we move on from that climb, the next one is actually an interesting one, and it's one that I'll show you now on the route profile. It sits over there. Doesn't look like much. It's a little peak, but one of the things about that little bump in the road, it has an average gradient of 7%, very short, 750 meters, but it comes straight out of checkpoint 2. So checkpoint 2 is where you get your first crate, where you can get some of your personal food, and crates will obviously be covered on some of the following episodes. And normally what happens there, you're going out of checkpoint 2, you have a mouthful of food, and you have this really steep little climb to go up. And we always say, and those of you that have ridden the race before, if you start cramping up here and you start finding things extremely difficult, you actually know that you've gone a little bit too hard in the beginning. So over to Zane, really, and I think Zane, we need to give this little climb a name, and you and I haven't come up with anything successful, so maybe let's put it out there and see if we can come up with a good name for this climb.
Yeah, I think I need to take a beer before we found our last Darling Brews in stock here for this talk. Yes, Harold, that Vickers always referred to that as the little kicker that tells you whether you can make it or not. It's the little climb just past Geelhout Bos, The old checkpoint 2 of many of you watching would know that was the first kick. Know that a lot of the pro riders, that's normally where they test each other if they're still in a bunch and attack and see who's got the legs for going into the wilderness area. So I would like to call on our all watching tonight to give us a few names for that hill. As you know, we've got very famous names for our hills all over the Transbavion's profile, and a lot of people refer to them. So at the moment, Harold and I and Vickers just came up with the cramp kicker, but give us a few names. We'll go and monitor the comments after this live stream, and then we'll choose a. I can't be at this stage, but hopefully we'll get you something as a prize, as a winner.
Thanks, Zane.
Harold, back to you. Yeah, okay, tell them further about those hills.
Thanks very much, Zane. So let's go back to the more official hills that you're possibly familiar with. The next one that comes up is Baviaans Back. Baviaans Back, some people some guys that have been riding really hard at this stage believe it's the Mac, and they really haven't been paying attention if that's the case. One of the big things here is the gradient, 6%. It doesn't seem to be too steep. It's 3.32 k's long, 190 meters of ascent, and it's, for me, having done the race a few times before, it's actually the first major climb that you hit. One of the things I can advise those of you that are going to ride a little bit longer in the race is make sure at this stage that you do have some sort of lights with you, because you don't want to go down the other side of Baviaans Back without any lights in the dark. It's not a pretty sight. So from there, we move on to going through checkpoint 3. You go through checkpoint 3, and now you start the serious business of the race. And the first two that come up are actually the fangs. There's the fangs number 1 and the fangs number 2. We've split them up just to give you some idea of what they are about. They do bite a little bit, as the name indicates. The first fang is a gradient of, on average, 8%, 1.2 k's. It's slightly longer than the second fang, but you'll see now that the second fang has a far steeper gradient, a little bit shorter. It's actually paved as well. And please believe me, there's no disgrace in walking up, especially the second fang, based on how steep that is. So all the information you actually see up on the screen on one of our new products, which is the Grit X. The feature you see there is the little splitter. So from there, we then move on to the mother of all climbs, in short, Mac. It's probably world famous, this climb. A lot of people will talk about it. The major part of the climb is 6.5 kilometers long with an average gradient of 6%. But we have to highlight here that there's a section of the climb, about 3.5 kilometers, that has an average gradient of 8%. The other trick behind Mac is that the King of the Mountains marker is considered the top of the hill. And this is the King of the Mountains finish line that the pros normally race for, to see who's the king and queen of the mountains for the race. But the sad news for the rest of us is we have possibly another 3 kilometers left after that. Not as steep as initially on the Mac itself, to get to Bergplaats and to get to the turnoff of Bergplaats. So whenever you hit the top of Mac and you see the King of the Mountains, make sure you have a little bit in reserve before you get to Bergplaats, because it is another 3 kilometers just to get to the turnoff up to Bergplaats. Once you have gone through that checkpoint 4 at Bergplaats and made use of all the good hospitality up there, the next one you'd move to is the Big Dipper. This is a downhill, so we have our big major descent, fair distance. It seems longer than 4 kilometers. It drops off quite drastically, and the average gradient there, or descent, is 5%. So nice long downhill back down into the valley. By this stage, you've covered well over 150 kilometers once you get to the bottom of that. Next very well-known climb, and the one that I actually find the most difficult in the event itself, is the Never Ender, because as the name says, very appropriate, it carries on forever. You never know when you really reach the top. And there you have a distance under 13 kilometers and an average gradient of 3%. You'll see you'll climb well over 300 meters in those 13 Ks. But you're well into the race now, you're 180 kilometers in, and it just seems to go on forever. Most of us do it in the dark, so you can't see the top except for the red lights ahead of you. And this is one to make sure you keep something in the tank before you hit it. Not very steep, but it is a lengthy climb. And then a few more left. The next one that we've got is you've now been through the last checkpoint. You actually know you're going to make it home, but we have the Mini Mac. Now the Mini Mac is, as you can see, just over a kilometer long and an ascent of about 80 meters. So you have an average gradient of 8%. So that far into the race, that does bite a bit. And in most years, that road surface is quite rough, rugged, and rocky. So keep something again in the tank for that. And then finally, we get towards the end of the race, and your job's not finished yet in a few aspects. We have another climb that hasn't been named, and we feel it's necessary to give this one a name as well. And it's typically the railway line climb. It goes up next to the railway line. It makes use of the mountain bike trails that the guys in Jeffreys Bay have put down. And yeah, fair distance, 4 kilometers. You climb steadily. After 220 kilometers into the race, you still climb steadily up for 4 kilometers, and you almost climb, or your ascent is almost 100 meters at that stage. So very gradual gradient, but I've heard a lot of people moan and groan about this one over time. So again, Zane, I think we need to get everyone onto naming this climb as well to give it an appropriate name.
Yeah, I don't know. You keep on putting me on the spot here with these climbs. The railway line, the fact that you've just shown that it's a climb as well, has never been a favorite part of this race. It's always one of those hot topics as well. And unfortunately, as we always say to people, it's purely safety. The reason why we select that route into town. And the J-Bay guys, Kevin and everybody there in J-Bay has put in a lot of effort into those trails and building them and making it much smoother for you guys, and they work on it every year. So hopefully it's not as bad as it has been in the past. But yeah, so we've got, I see some interesting names coming through already on the comments. I see we've got Klein Tant. That's something similar to what Vickers just mentioned as well.
Vickers, what
Vickers,
did you say should
that name be?
Well, I thought of the tongue, which is a word that forestry workers use.
Yeah, so there's various names coming through. Little Darling, baby of the back baby of all climbs. So there's interesting names. So let's get more names going for the railway line, and no swearing. I don't want any swearing on the names that comes through on these comments, please, guys. Harold, back to you with your splitter there, your hill splitter.
Thanks, Zane. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think once you've conquered that, and you've conquered that gradual gradient, as much as it may hurt at that stage, you're onto the finish line. So just to recap on the route profile, it looks extremely, well, I wouldn't say easy, but it can be quite deceptive. There's a few bumps along the way that initially make sure you keep something in the tank for later on. You do most of your climbing in this event in the second half of the race anyway. So just to end off from my side, the last slide I have to show you guys is obviously, as both Zane and Vickers mentioned, we are in a unique situation around the country. A lot of our concerns are centered around our training. We all obviously accept that there are far bigger concerns out there, but what does training look like under lockdown and beyond? Hopefully we'll get some good news in the next couple of hours, what we're able to do and what we can put in place to at least stay active. Just from my side, we will obviously discuss training in far more detail once we have a better idea of what can and cannot be done in subsequent episodes. But really, just the focus for tonight is just a few summary points. Consistency in any type of training, whether you're staying at home or not, is key. Have a routine. Even if you're not exercising the same amount of time as you did previously, at least be consistent with any type of activity that you are doing and set yourself a routine through this current period. It does help a lot. Next thing is obviously try as far as possible to limit all these heroic efforts that we see on social media. Keep things within reason. I cannot emphasize enough. I've seen a lot of exercise physiologists being online warning about running around your house. Yes, not a problem, but if you keep on running in the same direction, you might injure yourself. So keep changing direction. Make sure you take into account this is not normally what you would do. So really stay safe, and the heroic efforts, on our indoor trainer, as most of us are cyclists, we're obviously using indoor trainers to get some sort of training done. They're very good online platforms that are very motivational to train on, but we do see that in a lot of cases, people spend a lot of training time out there at very high intensity. So try and manage your intensity levels on these platforms. No harm in going hard every now and then and having some good fun with your mates. But look at your whole training picture and your training as a whole and make sure that the intensity is appropriate and it's not high intensity training or racing all the time. That brings me to the third point, obviously managing intensities of the sessions. And then in those sessions, sometimes we don't always account for what we do out on the road when we go out training. And remember to fuel appropriately. A lot of these indoor sessions, you're going to perspire a lot more. You're going to need far more electrolytes. So get a really good electrolyte supplement if you can get your hands on one. I know that most of you guys can get to pharmacies, or even that the nutritional guys are shipping product out. So I think that's one of the things to bear in mind, and make sure you fuel appropriately for those sessions that you are doing. Try and include some other type of exercises, whether it be strength, mobility, or balance sessions. That cannot harm in any way to do some supplementary training while you have possibly a little more time to do that training. And then lastly, in this time, you can also work on good, consistent sleep habits. The whole idea, it's the fourth key to training. Make sure you get good sleep consistently, 7 to 9 hours every night. Make sure you go to bed at the similar time, wake up at the similar time. So it's all about having that routine again, and the first point of the slide. So those are just really some very broad-based tips on the whole lockdown side of things. I think the best comment I heard a while back was the situation has really just pushed the pause button for a lot of us, and let's be ready when we're able to push the play button again. Back to you, Zane.
Cool, thanks, Harold. Sorry, I'm just trying to configure everything here that's going on the screen. And yeah, we are back on that camera. Harold, yeah, thanks for all of that insight on the training side, and definitely the hills. It seems like there's quite a few things coming through from the names already, and we'll review those later tonight and the rest of the week, and give you guys some feedback. But there's some really innovative stuff coming through. Also, if you have any questions for Harold regarding training in lockdown, things that you're currently doing, whether you're wondering whether it's working or not, or anything specific related to Transpavillons, please post those questions now. They will come up on my screen, and we'll try and answer
some of them for you now. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to bring Harold, I'm going to bring you back, and I'm going to go with us two here. And then if I see some questions already that came through. Some people asking about whether the event, some people joining late, whether the event's still going to take place. We have addressed that at the beginning. You're welcome to rewind after the show and just get the full address from Vickers. But the short answer is yes, we are going ahead with August planning. By 1 June, we'll make a call and notify everybody if August is not possible. That's the short answer. Some people are already asking if there's 2 events in 2021, will they actually be able to get the shield? Does that count for 2 events? Yes, it will count as 2 events, definitely. So that's not a problem. It will count as 2 for your shield. I also see some questions with sorry, I know that one was also the count. Oh, I see somebody requesting about we should be mindful of the Attakwas date. We will be. Something that we definitely also looked at and not postponing to the second part of the year, if we are going to postpone at all, was the fact that the calendar is now so overpopulated with events that have postponed from the first half of the year. So we will definitely take in mind other dates and look at it, but also it won't be at all possible for us to not, there's going to be some events that clash. We will be as mindful as we possibly can. Harold, I'm checking whether we've got any questions for you. We've got a naming here for what a lot of us know WTF as an acronym for something else, but Tiens Koch says it's where's the finish. So that's a good one, Tiens. I like that. Okay. Yes, Harold, do you want to say something there?
I think we should just make everyone aware that we do, some of you did see the images of a new product on screen, that is the GritX that we launched recently. And during this presentation, for those of you that have attended and are present with us at the moment, there's obviously, we've got a bit of a lucky draw going. Zane has the link that I understand you'll be putting up so people can fill in the form to be part of that lucky draw for a new GritX.
Yeah, that's correct. We've got a new device from them as a competition, and it will definitely we will post the link to the competition. It's purely a Google form that you would need to go and fill in. It will be posted in the comments on Facebook and YouTube right now. It's only going to be open for a limit time, so go and fill it out, and then you would be able to enter and stand a chance to win what I think is going to be an awesome product. I can't wait to see what it's going to do. Anymore? Let's see. Okay, I see here's coming questions through for question for Polar. Top fan, Jandre Prinsloo just announced that cycling is allowed between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. in a 5-kilometer radius from your home. Will the Baviaans training plan find on the site be adjusted to take this into account? Is that serious though, Jandre? Is it seriously only 5-kilometer radius from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.? Yeah, okay, well, I don't know. It sounds like a joke to me. But Harold, any suggestions on that as to how you will update the Polar training planners for that sort of scenario?
Look, I think that's quite a restrictive setting, but nonetheless, I think especially South Africans have shown to be quite resilient and can make a plan. So I think 5 kilometers, we just have to become cross-country riders and do a lot of circuits. and come up with circuits that are close enough to home that we can use as training. I think substantially from the plan's perspective, nothing much changes. It is based on duration and intensity. The only challenge I can see are obviously the long, slow distance rides that someone would want to put in on a weekly basis, is how to make those entertaining enough that you don't have to do a 2 or 3 kilometer loop around your suburb for hours on end. So I think let's see what comes out of those regulations, and sure, let's come up with some creative ideas on how to train. I don't think anyone's going to stop us from training, even if it is in such a short radius.
Okay. I see there's a lot of questions coming through. Guys, also bear in mind that we won't be able to answer everybody, and we will do our best to reply to some of the questions manually after this session as well. So we will try and I'm just scanning through as they're coming through, and we'll answer some of them. I saw one, sorry, I didn't see now who posted the question, but there was a question about if the Baviance is scheduled to take place in January and in midsummer, what will the expectations be in terms of your training and preparation for that rather than the winter event? Harold, I think that's probably a bit of a longer answer and something that we could address later in the series as well, but I don't know if you want to say anything at this point.
Well, I think what comes to mind immediately, if the event should be run in January, you have a summer from September, October, November to acclimatize to what could possibly be some fairly warm conditions. So in a very similar way as you would train for an August-based event through your winter and do some rides out in the cold, similarly you would try and put some rides in that would make you or allow you to adapt to these higher temperatures and other conditions. I think it's really just it's just tweaking the training. The concept behind the training doesn't change much, but you obviously have to take conditions that you can expect on race day and bring those into some of the sessions that you might be doing. I know up here in Johannesburg, around November, December, you can get some really warm days, and you could simulate what you can expect in the race. I mean, there will always be conditions that will be extreme, that we cannot always prepare for, but I think if you do your homework as best as possible and go in with the understanding that there might be something that you cannot control, I think you'll still have a great event.
Cool, thanks, Harold. I'm gonna go to Vickers and me on the camera here just for a moment as well. Is the one question that came through is, will we start at 6 a.m. in the morning if it's in January? Vickers, I think you can take that one, but I'm pretty sure I know what you want to say.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. January is still, the weather is fair in that area. It can get hot, but normally there's enough water, and I don't think we're going to move away from the 10 o'clock start, no.
The format of the event is what it is, and we will stick to that format. Harold, bringing you back up.
In the one question that came through here, what is the shortest training time required to finish the event? I think that what you cover that in your training planners with the amount of hours that is allowable there, but you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, thanks, Zane. I think that's a good question, because some people might expect to come out of a lockdown situation and then the event is around the corner. I think it's an interesting challenge. I think one thing one has to take into consideration is, well, what is your training history? What is your current condition? Ideally, an ideal build-up to any event, ideally you'd need 12 weeks to consistently build up for an event like this, to make sure that you are prepared as best as possible. However, if you are putting in work now, consistent work, and you have some sort of form, you may get away with less. But the general recommendation is allow yourself 12 weeks as a good training plan to build up for an event. I think that's really in a nutshell.
Okay, Harold, another one for you is the Shanine Bayers. I would say that training on a trainer would be more beneficial than trying to do a 5-kilometer radius and wait for level 3. What's your take on that, Harold?
Interesting question. Thanks, Zane, for putting me on the spot.
I'll have a sip of my beer while you answer that one.
My recommendation would be to alternate between the two. There's nothing wrong with a trainer, but one thing we have to take into account that there's certain muscle groups that are not utilized by riding an indoor trainer, and that a lot of them play a role in your balance. So I think if you wanted to do your slightly high intensity sessions, if you have any of those on your trainer, there's no harm in that. But you do need some sessions, I believe, out on the bike where the whole balance aspect is trained as well as the endurance aspect. So I think a balance of both of them, asking me how much of each is quite difficult. Again, one would have to look at training history and what the training history is like. But I would alternate between the two, very much so, because the indoor trainer does cover certain bases, but it certainly doesn't cover everything.
Okay, Harold, I think the last question, guys, that we're going to take on this forum, and we're going to continue with the rest of the show, is from Kobus Fourie. How much time do you need per week, Harold? I think that is also going to talk to our training planners. I think episode 3, we're going to go into depth with our training planners. But Harold, you can explain how the training planner works in the build up to a certain amount of hours, if you want to, if you can take that further.
Thanks, Kobus, for the question, and greetings to everyone down in Somerset West. The training that you'd need for an event like that, typically we generally recommend anywhere between 12 to 15 hours as your maximum week. So that essentially means in the planner, which we'll discuss in episode 3 in more detail, you would start off a lot lower than your 12. Let's take 12 as your maximum, and then you would build up to 12 hours as your maximum week. So it's a steady graded build up towards that amount of training volume, and obviously the appropriate intensity as well. So the general recommendation, I think, for a race like this is if you can look at a maximum training week of 12 hours. It doesn't mean you'll be training 12 hours every single week, but you will certainly build up to 12 hours. So if you can fit that into your schedule, I think you'll be fairly safe.
Great, thanks, Harold. I think that that is us for questions and answers at this stage. I've just put up that banner again of the Polar Grid X that you can win, and the link should be posted in our comments right now for you to go and fill in that Google form to stand a chance to win that very, very unique product that they've just launched last week. So go check it out, and go and fill in that form. Make sure that you're in that draw for winning this competition. Harold, I think then at this point, if there's no other questions and so on, I'm gonna first let you go, and then we're gonna go over to some of the views from our community, that things that they've been up to. Harold, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Zane. Appreciate it.
Vickers, we're back on that view, I think, and let me take away the link to the competition. And okay, so we've got obviously we're all in lockdown and everything's happening at the moment, and we've had various people from contacting us and talking to us about ideas and how to keep people active and so on. And as you all know, there's been numerous challenges going on. But one member of our community, of our trans community, as I like to refer to it, Ms. Jacques Steenkamp, contacted me about a week ago with his idea. And I was thinking along the same lines of ideas and just couldn't get it together. But he took it on and came up with a trans lockdown challenge. And which was great because it was organically grown by all of you probably watching. A lot of you probably took part in it, and it was great to see the love that you guys got for our event, and we really appreciate it. And I'm going to play a video clip about Jacques' side of the story. But before I do that, Vickers, you've got and maybe you can go into Afrikaans. Jacques also a very Afrikaans guy. Vir hierdie straaltjie van Jacques Steenkamp.
Ja, Jacques Steenkamp het oor ons pad gekom, 'n interessante storie, en ek deel dit graag met julle. Hy is die plaaseienaar gewees van Suurbron, die bekende checkpoint nommer 7, waar die Jaffels natuurlik beskikbaar is. Nou, toe ons begin het met die Transbaviaans, was hy net 'n boer. En elke jaar het ek hom gekontak, en daai jare was dit baie moeilik om hom in die hande te kry, en ek moes gewoonlik maar 'n faks stuur. Hulle het nog nie regtig e-pos gehad nie, en op daai manier het ons gereël dat ons wel die checkpoint daar op sy plaas kan hê, en elke jaar het ons maar dieselfde reaksie van hom gekry, en hy het maar gesê, praat met my voorman. Hy was nooit daar nie, ek weet nie waar hy was nie, of ek dink in die 5 of 6 jaar wat ons so gekommunikeer het, het ek hom een keer gesien in die bakkie verbyry. So ek het hom nog nooit in daai eerste klompie jare ontmoet nie. En maar in elk geval, toe 1 jaar, toe kom hy na my toe, en hy sê, hy stel hom toe self voor, en dis die eerste keer wat ek vir Jacques leer ken, en hy vertel my toe dat hy het nou vir hom en sy vrou 'n fiets gekoop, en hulle gaan nou begin fietsry. Toe sê ek, wel, in daai geval moet hulle die trans kom ry. En so het dit nou gebeur dat Jacques begin fietsry het, en toe, hy het nou verlede jaar, dink ek, het hy sy 5de ene voltooi. Hy sou al meer gedoen het, as dit nie was dat hy siek geraak het die 1 jaar nie, en ook het hy 'n ander jaar 'n rugoperasie gehad, wat hy vir 'n tyd van die fiets af was. So anders sou hy nou al goed op pad gewees het na sy 10de. En dis hoe ons verhouding met Jacques ontstaan het, en hy het intussen ook natuurlik die Suurbron bikepark ontwikkel daar op die plaas. Maar ongelukkig nou as gevolg van die droogte, het hy verlede jaar moes hy die plaas verkoop, of het hy hom verkoop, en hy leef nou 'n afgetrede lewe. En dis hoe ons paadjie met Jacques gekruis het. Maar ek wil graag vir julle vra om julle unieke stories. Daar's baie van hierdie besondere stories daar buite ook met ons te deel. Julle het nou tyd tydens die lockdown om 'n bietjie te dink en iets op papier te sit. En stuur 'n fotootjie ook saam. Dit sal nogal waardeer word, en miskien kan ons 'n boek een van die jare publiseer.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because for those that in South Africa don't understand a bit of Afrikaans, Vickers was just saying that that send us through your stories of what you've experienced over the years of Transbaviaans and unique stories that you've made. I know every year, because every year when we're out there in Willamore, we get those stories, and we know there's plenty of them, but they come in and they go out at that time of the event. So yes, please email them through team@ecobound.co.za, team@ecobound.co.za, and we'll pick them up and see what we can do with that. guys, so I hope the quality of this video is going to work. I'm going to play you the video, a few inserts from the Trans Lockdown Challenge that took place on, actually the whole long weekend, but the main thing was on Monday. A big shout out to Teresa Ralph and Sarah Hill that also took part. And great to see you girls riding. And they also confirmed to me earlier today that they will be on the show later in the series, chatting to you guys as well. So are we looking forward to that as well? Here we go.
Right, die Trans Lockdown Challenge. Hoe hierdie ding begin het. Ek en my seun het toe die lockdown begin, het ons 'n 2,5 km roete gebou hier op ons grond, hier naby St. Francis Bay, om onsself bietjie besig te hou, dat ek kan fietsry. En toe challenge ek om 100 km op een dag te doen op hierdie roete. Ons moes dit 40 keer doen. Hy het ingestem, ons het dit reg gekry. Het ons 6 ure geneem. Dit was nogal baie moeilik, want om so 2.5 al die ronde te ry, kry nie veel ruskans nie. En toe het ek vir hom gesê, as die lockdown verleng raak, hoe lyk dit, kom ons doen die Baviaanse afstand 230 km. Hy het gesê, hy weet nie so mooi nie. In elk geval, so het gekom dat meneer Ramaphosa toe dit verleng het, en so 2 jaar later sê vir my is in, hy gaan ry, het ons die baan bietjie verleng, ons maak om toe 6,5 km baan, en ja, toe dink ek, okay, kom, ons maak dit 'n bietjie 'n ding. Toe bel ek vir Zayn, en Zayn, dankie, jy het jou toestemming gegee dat ons julle naam kan gebruik, die rede hoekom ons Trans-Baviaans gebruik, dit is 'n lekker ultra reis, en 'n baie bekende reis, en dit is ook natuurlik vir my moeilike reis, so dit is 'n lekker uitdaging gewees, en is lekker om met 'n naam te kan koppel wat 'n suksesverhaal het. En ja, so het ek toe 'n Facebookblad begin, WhatsApp-groepe gestig, mense uitgedaag om die challenge saam met ons te doen. Ons koppel dit toe aan 'n kosbakkie projek. Elke ou wat deelneem, jy kan op Rowie doen of op Swift doen. Jy kan jou eie baan maak by jou huis, op die baan doen of 'n spinningfiets. Jy kan alleen doen of in spanverband. Ja, so het ons die ding bekend gestel. Elke ou soek sy eie borg vir die projekkie wat hy aanpak. En dit is waar ons toe staan en dinge weggehardloop. Ek is so bly vir almal wat die challenge aanvaar het. En ja, nou hoop ons net daar samel baie geld in vir die kosbakkie projek, sodat ons mense kan voed in hierdie moeilike tyd. Baie dankie vir almal wat deelgeneem het. Dankie ook vir al die borge. En dankie vir Zayn en dankie vir Piet. As jy nie ingestem het nie, het ek dink nie die projek van die grond af gekom nie. Dankie.
Okay, cool. There was a few inserts in the story about how Jock came about it. We are already talking amongst ourselves and with Jock and a lot of you community guys to maybe make a few more of those formal, especially now. I see, are we getting confirmation that this 5 kilometer thing is actually a reality? Taking into account that we are live on air on a platform where I can't swear, I won't say anything. But yeah, 5Ks, it's going to be interesting. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody, I see there's some questions coming through about when the next one is going to be. Depending on what's happening with lockdown and availability of everybody that we want to pull into these talks. But for now, we're going to try and do it every Wednesday evening for the next couple of weeks and see how we can keep that up and go with it. And at least until we get all the content we feel you guys need to prepare for the event. And that will come over to, we'll split that into at least the 6 episodes that we've advertised already. And those 6 episodes will play out every Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock for the next couple of weeks. The setup might change. Vickers won't always be there. Maybe I won't always be there. Harold from Polar we'll try and get in as a training partner every time. We're going to be talking to Trevor from Powerbar. We're going to talk to Victor Momsen from Momsen Bikes. We're going to talk to Teresa and Sarah, as I said, and various other people will pull into the show and hopefully bring you some value and something to do on Wednesday evenings. Guys, yeah, cheers on that. literally our last darling. I don't know if anybody's got any clarity if we can get more beers from Friday, but hopefully darling can do us a favor and get us more beers. I'm going to leave you with a clip from Nieuwekloof Pass onwards and beautiful visuals from that part of the Baviaanskloof, and hopefully that will give you some encouragement to cycle 5k loops around your suburb. Cheers guys, have a good evening. Bye bye.
All right.